Okay, in this video we're looking at factorising harder quadratics, but just to kind of recap quickly, right, on the left here you can see you've got an easier example of a quadratic to factorise, and on the right you've got a harder example of a quadratic to factorise. And the difference here is, so this is at the grade 5 level, and it's easier because you've just got an x squared part of the quadratic, which just means you've got 1x squared. But the harder variations are where you've got a number, so a coefficient bigger than 1 before the x squared. And we'll see in these next sort of few videos how to factorise the harder quadratic. But just quickly recap, because it's important that we can understand what's going on here. To factorise this kind of quadratic from the grade 5 level, well, first of all, factorise means you want to put something into a pair of brackets. And with this here, it's a quadratic because you've got a square part to it, and you've got 3 parts to it. We're going to be putting this into a pair of double brackets. And the process for this that we've seen previously is always numbers that multiply to give you the last part of the quadratic, so negative 24, and numbers that add up to give you the middle part of the quadratic, which is positive 5, so just 5. Okay, and numbers that are going to work here are going to be 8 and negative 3, because 8 times negative 3 gives you minus 24, and then 8 add minus 3, or just 8 take away 3, gives you 5. So then in your bracket, you would just go and put, always at the front, it's going to be x, and then over here it's going to be x. And then your two numbers, which are 8 and minus 3, you can put them in any order, but 8x plus 8, x take away 3, and there we go. So important to note that this thing here means the same thing as what is down here, just the part in brackets is in factorised form, okay? But in these videos, we're looking at factorising harder quadratics like this, where you've got a number before the x squared part. And let's look at factorising this quadratic and how you would do it over here. So again, right, this is now grade 6 because the number before the x squared part, so we've just called it a here, right, is bigger than 1. So you can see it's a 2. Now, in these videos, I'm going to just sort of teach you the process for doing this, and I'll do other videos which which I might get onto, which are a bit more intuitive and other ways of thinking about it. But I just want to give you a way of doing this, and it's going to be pretty bulletproof if we get good at it. So that's going to be useful. Now, the way that you do this is it's numbers that this time multiply, not just to give you the last number, but you've got to go and do 2, and you times it by that number there. So you go and do 2 times 5, which gives you 10. But the same thing as before is numbers that add up to give you the middle term, which is positive 7. So that part is the same. Okay, and numbers that work here are going to be 5 and 2. And this part is really important you get it correct. So just double check that this is right. 5 times 2 gives you 10, and 5 add 2 gives you 7, which is really, really important. Now, the next part is we're going to go and make a bit of a grid, okay, and you're going to see why in a second. And the way that we do this is we put the first part, 2x squared, in the top left of the grid, and it's always going to be the same. So 2x squared is going to be going up here. You go and put the last part of the quadratic, which is the 5, in the bottom right, so 5 can go down here. And then these two numbers here, 5 and 2, okay, you can go and put anywhere in your grid. So let's go and put it, maybe the 5, go and put it here, and the 2, let's go and put it here. And you've got to go and put an x with these parts here, because now if we check it, the part inside the grid, this should give you this quadratic up here. We've just kind of written it in a different way. You've got 2x squared, which is up there. You've got a 5x and 2x, which gives you 7x, and you've got a 5, which is over there. So what is in the grid should give you the quadratic, which is up here. Now, you've got to go and factorise this grid, okay? And the way that we can do this is, well, you can either go and factorise the row or the column. Now, if you try to factorise this column, because you've got 2 and 5, there's not really a good common factor of 2 and 5. I mean, 1 does work, but it's going to be really awkward because you can't just go and take out a 2 because 2 doesn't go into 5. But if we go and look at this row over here, we can much more easily factorise this, because what number goes into 2 and 2? Well, you can go and take out a 2. And what goes into x squared and x, you can go and take out an x. So you've got it factorised this way. Now, 2x times what gives you 2x squared? It's going to be x up here. Okay, 2x times x gives you 2x squared, and 2x times what gives you 2x? Well, you've already got it, so just a 1. Now, similarly here, x times what? It gives you 5x. It's going to be 5, because 5 times x gives you 5x, and then hopefully the last part, 5 times 1, gives you 5, which it does. And then what's really important is these parts up here, x and the positive 1 and the 2x and the positive 5, this is what goes inside your bracket. So you can just now go and write your brackets, and it's going to be a pair of double brackets, okay, where your answer is going to be x plus 1, because the 1 is positive, and then you've got 2x, and it's going to be plus 5, because the 5 is positive, and that is your answer, okay. You've factorized it, you've put it into brackets, and let's just highlight that so we can see that is definitely our answer. But importantly, right, we can check our answer with factorizing, because the opposite of factorizing is to expand back out your brackets. And let's just, for the sake of this, let's go and write it over here and just check our work, and let's do it in green for the checking. Let's go and check our work by expanding back out, and hopefully we get back to the quadratic that you can see at the top. So you've got x times x times 5, 1 times 2x, and 1 times 5. X times 2x gives you 2x squared. X times 5 gives you positive 5x. 1 times 2x gives you positive 2x. And then 1 times 5 gives you plus 5. And of course, the middle terms you can combine to give you 5x and 2x gives you plus 7x. And you've got that 5 on the end. So you can see that this is exactly what you started off with. So we've done it correctly. Okay, you can always check your work by expanding. So here, I'm checking my work, and it is correct. So in this video, we're going to just look at 2 more examples. Okay, my turn, your turn, where you're looking at factorizing, where it's a harder variation, but every single part of the quadratic is positive. So it's a little bit easier because it just makes things easier to deal with in this video. Okay, so let's look at the first one. I'll put both on the screen because perhaps now you might be able to give them both a go. But I'll go through the my turn, and then I'll go through to your turn. And you can pause the video if you want to and give these a go. Now again, we begin by numbers that are going to multiply to give you not just 12, you've got to go and do 2 times 12 in this one. And 2 times 12 gives you 24. And then it's going to be numbers to add to give you the middle part, which is the same as the grade 5 variation, which is going to be 11. The numbers that work here are going to be 8 and 3. Okay, but if you weren't sure, like if you just thought, well, times to make 12, you could go 12 and 2, just try numbers and then go from there. 12 times 2 is 24, but 12 add 2 is 14, so they don't work. But just through a bit of experience, right, you'll get there quickly that 8 and 3 are your numbers. 8 times 3, 24, 8 add 3 gives you 11. And then from here, you go and make your grid, okay? And in your grid, it's always the first part of it goes in the top left, so 2x squared is going to go up here. And then your number part, the 12, goes down here. With your 8 and your 3, they can go anywhere inside your grid, okay? And you've got to go and add on an x part to those, because now this will give you the quadratic that you've got up here. And let's check it. 2x squared, you can see 8x and 3x gives you 11x, and 12 and 12. There we go. And now you've got to go and factorize this. And again, you can go either, well, if you try to do the column this way, taking a number out of 2 and 3 is much more awkward than going from 2 and 8, because we can see, well, what goes into 2 and 8, you can take out a 2, which is good. And you can also go and take out an x. And then from here, you can go and say, well, 2x times what gives you 2x squared? It's going to be x. And 2x times what gives you 8x is going to be positive 4. And an x times what gives you 3x, it should be 3. And 3 times 4, it works out, it gives you 12, so you know you've done it correctly. And then from here, your brackets are going to be the top part, which is x plus 4, because it's positive 4. And then you've got your 2x and your 3, so it's going to be 2x and then plus 3. And that is your answer for this one. Okay, there we go. Perfect. Again, the 8x and the 3x, they can go the other way around. You'll just factorize it in a slightly different way, but you'll get to the same answer. Okay. Now, the one on the right, you can give that one a go, and I will go through this one now. But the same process again. So again, numbers that multiply to make this time 3 times 6, which is going to give you, 18, and numbers that add to give your middle part, which is positive 11. So that can go in there. And again, 3, if you weren't sure, maybe you would try and do, well, 6 times 3, because 6 times 3 gives you 18, but 6 add 3 doesn't give you 11, so that doesn't work out. Let's go and try 9 and 2, which does work out because 9 times 2 is 18, 9 add 2 gives you 11. So that's a much better option to go for here. Now in your grid, okay, your first part, the 3x squared, is going to go up here. Your number part, your 6 goes down here, and your 9 and your 2, they can go anywhere within your grid. So 9x and then 2x, they can go anywhere within your grid. And again, you think to yourself, well, which way is going to be better to factorize here? This one's a bit awkward because you've got 3 and 2, but this one's much better because you can take out a 3 out of 3 and 9. So that's going to be a good one to do. So we're going to be going and factorizing this. And you've got x squared and x, you can go and take out an x. And then we can do 3x times x gives you 3x squared. 3x times 3 gives you 9x. X times 2 gives you 2x. And 2 times 3 gives you 6. So there we go. So now your 2 brackets in any order. Okay, so this time let's go and start with 3x plus 2. That is absolutely fine. Here's one bracket, and your second bracket is going to be x, and you've got a positive 3, so x plus 3, and that is your answer. Okay, so there we go. So that is it for an introduction to factorizing harder quadratics. Thank you.